Al is someone that I've known now for, a couple of years. I get a chance to meet with him once a week, and I've learned an immense amount when it comes to working with landlords and negotiating space when it comes to, where you want your location to be, how to get the right kind of improvements, and how to actually negotiate in such a way as to benefit you every time it comes up for renewal. Al, I wanted you to kind of introduce yourself, tell people here on my LinkedIn community what you're all about in your LinkedIn community. How long have you been in the business, and what's your specialty, would you say?
Sure. I've been in business as a realtor for over 30 years. I've been a licensed commercial broker for over 28 years. And I have focused on one side or niche of the commercial real estate world for the last 9 years, where I only represent the tenant or the buyer. And what that I have found, and through a lot of experience representing both sides of a transaction, is that you need to have somebody on your side of the transaction. There's always a side. Like I always say, there's an imaginary table between the owner of the property and their agents, and the ones who want to acquire the use or the purchase of that property. And I represent only the side that wants to acquire the use or purchase of that property. And it gives the client, my client, an advantage because there is no question that my allegiance is only with them. And with most other agents, you want to be concerned that they might have another agenda besides just you.
That's great. And Al, I always tell people that are looking for new space, or business owners that are trying to decide what they want to do, is that you're really one of the industry's best kept secrets, because it doesn't cost anyone anything to work with you. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. Unless there is one example or two examples where I do get paid by my client, and those are a renewal situation where I didn't bring you into the space. The landlord did not. I didn't bring you to that property, and if I'm helping you renew that location, I'm going to charge you a service fee for helping you negotiate your best transaction. But if I'm helping you locate a new location, in other words, either an expansion of another office or another warehouse or another retail location, or you're moving your existing location to another location, the new landlord will pay me to bring you as their cash flow. And it's a very similar relationship to a buyer broker in a house, where if you hire a buyer broker, you don't pay them anything to help you find that house and negotiate that best deal for your house. So that's the same thing, but in the commercial side, it's landlord and tenant as opposed to buyer and seller. Or in the buyer and seller, the same thing. The seller of the property hires an agency, ABC Realty, whoever they may be, and they put the sign on the property. They represent the property and only the property. And that's what you really have to remember, is that they only represent the property owner, never the person calling on the sign. So if you're the person calling on the sign, you will never have any representation. They cannot represent you. They only represent the owner. No matter how friendly and nice they seem, they're not out to help you. They're out to help their client, which is not you.
Right. So bottom line is that, even going around looking at space on your own or calling phone numbers on the side of a leasing offer, it's really a bad idea without somebody like you in their corner. And knowing you, being a part of your network doesn't actually cost anybody anything at all. Hey, can you give us a quick example when it comes to, it's clear that having you on their side when looking for new space is pretty critical. But can you give us a quick example of how negotiating a current lease opportunity where someone doesn't want to move, maybe you helped add value in that way?
Sure. I actually do a service called Lease Doctor, which will give you it's a flat fee, and you get a report on all of your spaces in your current marketplace that are like your space. For instance, if you occupy 2,000 square feet of office and you are in a certain market, whatever that market might be, I will do a research for a 3 or 5 mile radius from there for all 2,000 square foot type offices that are somewhat similar to yours, and see what they're going for, because that is your opportunity to move, is where those spaces are. Those are your options. If you were to decide to move that, I know that you're going to stay, but if you wanted to move, those where you would go, and that's your competition, and more importantly, your landlord's competition. That's what you need to tell the landlord, that you know that there are 12 spaces out there that are $1 or more a square foot, which is what we quote rates by, less than what your landlord wants, and that is what you need to have. You need to have what we call a hammer, the information to prove to the owner that they're being unreasonable. And sometimes, you know, you have to play hardball with them. They will fight for that dollar. Keep in mind that the only reason that they buy these buildings in the first place is to make money. It's not to be your friend. So you have to stand up as a business owner, not as their friend, because you're never going to be their true friend, no matter how friendly they may be.
Sure.
They're in it for money. That's their job. That's why they bought the property in the first place. So don't think that they're trying to screw you. They're just trying to make money for their family. Let's put it that way. Now,
absolutely,
if there's a competition, if there's a building across the street or a mile away from you that has very light kind type space, and he's not willing to go down, maybe you do want to consider moving. I know it's a pain in the neck to move, but sometimes you have to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to get, taken by this guy just because he wants to make extra money. And there are times there's a lot of empty space out there, and there are other times there are not so much empty space out there. This happens to be one of those times there's not a lot of empty space out there. So it's not a lot of competition for the landlords, and a lot of the buildings are very filled up. And that means that they're going to be stricter and more difficult to deal with at this time, where in 3 or 5 years from now, they may not be.
Well, that was something that you had mentioned to me just in our last just hanging out, that you were talking about today's market, specifically in Atlanta, is really tight right now. What do you see happening over the next 6 to 12 months and really beyond that?
Well, it depends what type of space we're talking about. Like, for instance, if it's retail space, we're at well, I've been in Atlanta for 20 years. And for 20 years, it's never been below double-digit vacancy space in retail. It's always been 10% or more vacant. And there have been times where there are 20 and 25% vacancy. And those are, by the way, great times to want to rent space, because then you can really negotiate with the landlords. They're very hungry. But when there's a lack of space, like right now, retail is at 5.4% vacant metro-wide in Atlanta. And what that means is that that 5.4% is one of two things. Either garbage, which means it doesn't have good visibility, it doesn't have good parking, it doesn't have good access. Believe it or not, if there's a church on the property, that detracts from a retail, because that church only brings people in on the weekends, on Sundays when you're usually closed. So these are indicators of why a shopping center might have empty spaces. But those are few and far between right now, because it's a 5.4% vacancy rate right now, which has never been, well, I've been here, like I said, 20 years. Office is at like 7% vacancy, and they're about to build a bunch. I mean, there's millions of square feet of office space about to be built. The building owners have been holding off in building because they wanted to make sure the economy was going to hold up. It takes a couple of years to get from the ground to completion for these large projects, and they have to plan way in advance. So in a couple of years from now, we're going to have some empty spaces out there, and that'll be a better time to negotiate than now. So, what I'm telling my clients to do is take shorter term leases right now, 2 or 3 year leases with an option to renew, so that you can stay there if you want to, but not lock in a rate that is high like it is today, because 2 or 3 years from now, it might be a lot lower. Because the market goes up and down. It's natural. It's a natural progression. Every 7 to 10 years, there's a full cycle of rates. And it's all of it based upon availability. So just like we all learned in economics, supply and demand. And if there's supply,
now, how does this?
So if there's supply, then the prices will drop, and if there's a lot of demand, the prices will go up.
So a couple of questions. One is, how does this time period? How's it going to look compared to like 2006 and 2007 before everything kind of fell apart? And then really, how is today's Atlanta current picture similar or not similar to the rest of the nation?
Well, Atlanta is gifted with a lot of positives, and we have one of the things that is helping us in one way and hurting us in another is the fact that we have the busiest airport in the world. So that means that a lot of companies want to be here, so they have access to this busiest airport in the world, which means that they have more traffic and more flights to just about any other airport that you can choose from in the United States. And we have no natural barriers to grow. We have land in 360 degrees. We don't have an ocean that's stopping us. We don't have anything. So we have a lot of land to grow, and our land values are relatively low. So for building it's just a much more inexpensive place to do business than a lot of the big cities. So there's a lot of benefits to being in Atlanta for a business. So we are still averaging about 80,000 new jobs a year. When we had you mentioned those 6 or 7, those were times when we had over 100,000 new jobs a year. And then when we dropped the 09, 10, 11 lows, then those numbers dropped to almost 0 new jobs a year. And new jobs equals jobs that weren't there the year before.
Sure.
So that is what, and then the negative to that, of course, is our traffic situation, which people are always concerned about. That we have an enormous amount of growth of people moving into the area because it has all these great benefits and all these great, values that we love being here. And then on top of that, we don't have any major highways that are growing in. We don't have any major road widenings. So the same roads are handling 50% more traffic than they were 10 years ago. Or 20, I should say 20 years ago. We have about 50% more traffic than we did almost 20 years ago on the same roads. Wow. So that concerns everybody because you have to get your employees to your job, to your location. So many times businesses move because of the traffic pattern, and they'll move to a more convenient location that is more accessible to their key personnel. And companies have to know who their key personnel are and making sure that they're not being hassled, whether they tell you or not, with an hour's drive each way or more, because that will give them the reason to leave. And if they're a key personnel, you don't want to lose them. So many businesses move because of key personnel. They start out with the location best for their CEO, and they end up finishing their location, their best location, where their key personnel live closest to.
Yeah, that's a great point, Al. Do you, when you take on a new client and you start to work with them, do you actually go through some sort of question discovery process to
every time
almost help them know where they want to be?
Every time we go through haves and wants. What do you have that you really like? What do you want that you don't have?
Yeah.
What is good about your location? What is not? So those are the I need to know that, so that if we're going to look for another location, I want to make sure I don't repeat the same mistake that was, made in the first place. I can tell you a really quick short story about a retailer who I helped after he had already started looking for a space. And after looking at a few spaces, I targeted one that I thought was his best, but I don't push. I said, I believe this is your best location, but you decide for yourself. And he said, you know what? I'm going to go to one that I had seen before I met you because he's giving me a really good deal. And he told me the address, and I looked it up, and I said, listen, I'm going to say Joe. Joe, I like the location that has good visibility, but it has terrible access and no parking to speak of unless you walk about, all around the building to the back. And he said, no, that's okay. They told me they were going to leave the space in the front empty for me, and there's only 4 spaces empty in the front, by the way, that you can park in. And this was a 3,000 square foot store, which would need about 15 to 20 spaces just for the, general.
Oh, shoot.
So, and the access to it is very bad. You have to make a U-turn if you're going in the other direction and come back about half a mile. And then once you get there, it's a very steep slope going in. So some cars bottom out as they went in. I know because I was there. So he took the space, and after a year, he calls me. He says, I think you were right. I made a mistake. I'm having a lot of problems. My customers are complaining to me left and right. I'm having to make deliveries because they won't come to my store. And I never.
Oh, painful.
So now when his lease is up, he's going to listen to me. He's moving to a shopping center that I recommended to him because it has a lot of open parking. It's in a Kroger shopping center, which is a natural anchor. The other property did not have any anchor at all. It was a bunch of little stores. And so, you need to listen to your professionals sometimes. If you hire an attorney, you're going to listen to them because you're paying them. With us, it's sort of different because you're not paying me. But listen anyway. We happen to know what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, Al, do you have a way that maybe like a ongoing monthly communication email that you send out, something that people can get updates on the Atlanta market or any other market that they may be interested in?
I do not. I just started posting stuff on Facebook, you know, for the business. First Global Realty is on Facebook as a Facebook page, and
Okay.
I have not put too much stuff into it, but I will. I need to do more of that.
Okay.
But thank you for the
Maybe that's
suggestion. I need to do that.
Yeah, maybe that's something that we can work on, because this is it's a great service, and I think that, you know, I think it'd be nice to be able to send out that updating. And honestly, I think everyone that's listening right now, you know, should reach out to you independently and ask to be, you know, put on that regular list, because, you know, you're quite an asset. And like I said before, you're certainly one of Atlanta's best kept secrets. But you, as a trade and as a service provider, you know, anybody who's doing what you're doing should be utilized on a regular basis, especially when leases are coming up to date. I've found that you've been invaluable.
Thank you, Corbin. You know, I will say that the official role or title of what I do is tenant representation. It's not a word that,
okay,
you know, words that roll off your tongue, but it is what I do. I represent tenants, and that is a value that, frankly, as you said, is a hidden gem, because we never put a sign in front of a property, because I don't represent the property. Right. So how else would you know about us other than a referral? The real fact is that it is hidden, because I really don't advertise as much, you know, much. My business, as most tenant reps, are based upon referrals and people referring business to us from, you know, their friends and colleagues that might need help with their business space needs, whether it be office space or warehouse space or retail space. It doesn't really matter.
Well, hey, go ahead and give us the best number to reach you on.
Sure. Our office number is 404-567-5617. 404-567-5617. Or the website, you can go to the website.
Yeah, go ahead.
And that is www. And the name of the company is first, but not the word first. It's the number one, letter S, letter T, globalrealty.us. So it's www.firstglobalrealty.us.
Great. Hey, Al, thanks so much for hopping on with me. Like I said before, I've known Al for, you know, several years now, and he's just been someone of great value. I learn from him every week. And I hope that everyone here has gotten a lot of value at least listening to how he works with customers, as well as the kind of information around the Atlanta market here. Thanks a lot, Al. Appreciate you.
I look forward to it. Thank you very much, Corbin. Appreciate the opportunity. Take care.
Definitely. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.